Hi everyone. My name is Kávási Sarolta Beáta, and let me present to you my 12-month progress. And the topic of my PhD is surgical aspects of colorectal cancer treatment. I am a fifth-year surgical resident from Toldy Ferenc Hospital and a PhD student here at the CTM. My supervisor is Szabolcs Abraham and my SMS is Annette. I have the vision of improving the immediate post-operative and quality of life of patients following colorectal cancer surgery, with the mission of bringing the latest scientific data to clinical use in the surgical field. For this, I have two specific goals. The first one is comparing the different types of anastomosis following total mesorectal excision, and the second one, comparing the surgical and oncological outcomes of extralevator to conventional abdominoperennial excision. My first topic is end-to-end anastomosis provides similar quality of life compared with other reconstructive techniques 6 months following total mesorectal excision. It is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. Let me present you the background. We all know that worldwide there's an estimated almost 2 million people diagnosed with colorectal cancer each year, from which more than 700,000 cases are rectal cancer cases only. In Hungary, there's yearly around 10,000 cases of colorectal cancer diagnosed. Anastomotic leakage, the most feared postoperative morbidity, is reported to be around 13% within 30 days of surgery and can increase up to 20% following 30 days of surgery. Up to 90% of our patients undergoing total mesorectal excision will have a low anterior resection syndrome, which in the long term, it will affect their quality of life. At this point, there's no clear consensus on which type of anastomosis is safer for a surgeon to perform. Thus, the aim of our study is to investigate which type of anastomosis is best in terms of safety and quality of life to assess if end-to-end anastomosis is as safe as the other types of anastomosis. We have the clinical question: does end-to-end anastomosis show any difference in terms of postoperative morbidity and quality of life compared to other types of anastomosis? We have employed the PICO framework, where patients consist of patients following total mesorectal excision. We are comparing end-to-end anastomosis to side-to-end anastomosis, colonic J-pouch, or transverse coloplasty. And our outcomes, you can see them here. We hypothesize that end-to-end anastomosis is as good as the other types of anastomosis in terms of safety and quality of life. We have conducted our systematic search on the 8th of November last year in the 3 major databases, and after a careful selection, we have narrowed it down to 29 full-text randomized controlled trials. So let's talk about the most important outcomes. First of all, the anastomotic leakage. This plot represents the anastomotic leakage following end-to-end compared with colonic J-pouch. This outcome is very important to us surgeons because it is the most serious post-operative morbidity, and actually it is the most expensive one to treat. For this, we have used the measure of effect of risk ratio, which can be interpreted in the following way. If the risk ratio is equal with 1, then there's no difference in terms of anastomotic leakage between the 2 studied arms. If the risk ratio is smaller than 1, then there's a higher chance of anastomotic leakage in the colonic J-pouch group. And if the risk ratio is higher than 1, then there's a higher chance of anastomotic leakage in the end-to-end group. As you can see, we have included 15 randomized controlled trials in this analysis, and we have a really low heterogeneity of 0%. This is most probably due to the strict inclusion and exclusion criteria, and also because the total mesorectal excision is a standardized surgical procedure done on a very specific subset of the population. In this comparison, as you can see, our risk ratio was 1.03, meaning that the risk of developing anastomotic leakage following end-to-end is similar as after colonic J-pouch. The same can be said about the comparison between end-to-end and side-to-end groups. We have made a subgroup analysis actually here because there are some studies that included sigmoidectomy cases also, but it didn't result in a big difference reviewing the risk ratios in these 2 subgroups. In total, the risk ratio was 1.19, meaning that the risk of developing anastomotic leakage following end-to-end is similar as after side-to-end anastomosis. Following total mesorectal excision, our patients have a variety of dysfunctions, such as intestinal, urinary, sexual, and even psychological dysfunction. Thus, examining the quality of life of our patients is critical. Because of the varied questionnaires used to assess this outcome, the measure of effect used for this was standardized mean difference, which can be interpreted in the following way. If the standardized mean difference is equal with 0, then there's no difference in the quality of life between the 2 studied arms. If the standardized mean difference is smaller than 0, then there's a better or higher quality of life in the colonic J pouch and later on in side to end. If the standardized mean difference is higher than 0, then there's a better or higher quality of life in the end-to-end group. In this analysis, we have compared patients following end-to-end anastomosis and colonic J pouch. We have assessed our patients in 7 time points, but actual statistical analysis was done only at 2 time points, at 6 and 12 months. As you can see, at 6 months, our SMD was minus 0.22, and at 12 months, minus 0.24. Both of them are statistically non-significant result. So we can say that following total mesorectal excision, between the 2 types of anastomosis, there's comparable quality of life. Moving on to the comparison of end-to-end versus side-to-end, actual statistical analysis was done at 6 months following surgery, where, as you can see, the SMD was minus 0.04. So at 6 months following surgery, the quality of life of patients between the 2 studied arms is comparable. So one might ask, what is the relevance of all of these non-significant results? Well, colonic J pouch and side-to-end anastomosis are more time-consuming, technically challenging procedures that most of the times require more surgical staplers. So without any added benefit, we should use the more safer, easier, and fastest approach, which is the end-to-end anastomosis. Our strengths include not only that we have followed a rigorous methodology with only randomized controlled trials, but also it is the first quantitative analysis on quality of life following total mesorectal excision. Of course, we have our limitations, mostly because of the lacking data on long-term follow-up and the varied quality of life questionnaires used. So in conclusion, there's no difference in short-term postoperative morbidity between the studied types of anastomosis, and we can say at 6 months following surgery, the quality of life after end-to-end anastomosis is similar as after colonic J pouch or side-to-end. The implication for research would be that we need cost-effectiveness evaluation to finally rest this debate. This is the status of my first manuscript. We have submitted it to British Journal of Surgery, which has a 9.6 impact factor on the 1st of August, and it is currently under review. So let's move on to the second topic, which is comparing surgical and oncological outcomes of extralevator to conventional abdominoperineal excision for low rectal cancer cases. So we all know that for advanced low rectal cancer, the abdominoperineal excision is one of the standard surgical procedures, but unfortunately it carries a high risk of local recurrence, even up to 30%. In 2007, Holm et al. Proposed the ELAP, which is the extralevator abdominoperineal excision, which means we remove not only the mesorectum, but also the surrounding levator muscles, hopefully leading to a better oncological outcome. But of course, this has its downfall also because they reported increased perineal wound healing and perineal hernia, by some studies even up to 60%. Thus, the aim of our study is to investigate which type of procedure what kind of long-term effects does ELAP have compared to abdominoperineal excision? We have the clinical question of, is ELAP associated with an increased overall survival rate and higher morbidity compared to standard AP in patients with advanced rectal cancer? We have the PICO framework where we assess the adults with advanced rectal cancer, comparing the ELAP to APE, and the most important outcomes are oncological outcomes, which is the overall survival, the disease-free survival, and local recurrence-free survival. And we hypothesize that ELAP is associated with an increased survival time and higher morbidity compared to APE. And of course, our clinical implication would be to increase the overall survival of our patients. We have done the systematic search on the 14th of April this year in 3 major databases, and we are working on our selection at this point. This is our progress, and we plan to finish the title and abstract by the following 2 weeks. So in summary, we have these 2 projects. The first one, comparing the different types of anastomosis following total mesorectal excision. We have submitted it on 1st of August, and hopefully the second one will be submitted by the end of this year. I want to thank you for your attention with my favorite quote, which is, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change."